As it please the court, my lord. Thank you, Brigadier.
Yes, ma'am.
We are proceeding.
Yes, sir.
Now, we were still on Mrs. Zandi Kumalo, on the issue of her possibility, on the issue of her possibility of attending an identification parade. Now, before we adjourned, you gave a very brief summary. Then you said, like all Mr. Longwe Twala, Makumalo, Kelly Kumalo, the reason why she could not attend an identification parade was where you put them in the same bracket, not so?
Yeah, I've put them in this context, my lord. There was no ID parade present. So I've put it in this context that there was no indication that they should participate, should one be arranged
Yes.
as a directive. You know, these four, and I said, then I said, my lord, except the two, which is Mr. Thokozisi Twala and Tumelo Madlala, who were then approached. But there was no ID parade that was held.
Thank you.
ID parade yona ke engekho kodwa ngishilo ukuthi nalaba ke bawu4 uMakhumalo, uZandi Khumalo, Kelly Khumalo noLongwe Twala akukho ke okwashiwo ukuthi ke akukhulunywe nabo mayela nayo kodwa ke uLongwe uma ngexolisa ke uTumelo kanye naye uMthokozisi bona ke washiwo ukuthi akuyokhulunywa nabo.
Thank you. Now, was there any specific reason to arrive at that decision that the team had? That is, when I say the team, I mean yourself and the prosecutors.
No, my lord, like I said, when the matter is prosecutorial driven, decisions, advice and guidance is given by the prosecution, and at the end of the day, it's a decision that's taken, my lord.
Uma ke uphenyo ke luholwa ke ibona ke abashushisayo ke inqumo ke kanye futhi nezeluleko ke zibuya kubona ke egcineni ke kuba nesinqumo esithathwayo.
I've cited the facts, my lord, which I said were worrisome, so to say, and I've tried to indicate them on each individual, but the ultimate position was that these four must not be approached and these two must be approached. That's the end of the position, my lord.
Ngikushilo ke izathu ke noma naloko ke kwakubhekiwe ukuthi ingani ke laba abawu4 bona ke engakhulunywanga nabo mayelana naludaba ungani laba abawu2 kukhulunyiwe nabo egcineni ke kunesinqumo esathathwa.
Thank you. He can't be the end. Look, Zandi was a potential witness. Is there any specific reason why the team said Zandi should not participate? And if there was no specific reason that came from the team, did you ask them, hey, gentlemen, but look, ladies and gentlemen, look, this person was one of the eyewitnesses in the house. Why can't she go and participate in an identification parade? Maybe she would be able to identify those that have just arrested now, or one of those that have arrested now.
My lord, as I've said, I think in all the four people that I've mentioned factors that were raising, that were questionable, so to say.
Yes.
And that is why when I came to Ms. Zandi Khumalo, I also said the same with regard to the text that I was made to go through this court. But I've also qualified it that subsequent to that is now much later, at a later stage, there was no evidence that I found which suggests that she could have known. But at that stage, investigation was still ongoing and we didn't have all the facts. Hence, you will also see with Ms. Kelly Khumalo, after the matter was enrolled in October, there was still investigation and submission of statements in November to try and, so it was the same situation. So at the time when the position was taken that let us not take this position, there were certain clarities, but it was not to say there could not be a position where we find something. It was just at an early stage and that decision was taken, my lord.
Nanjengoba nakubona bobawu4 ke ngishilo ukuthi ke kwakungani kuthiwe hayi cha asingayike kubona ke nakuyena ke uMzandi Khumalo bese ngishilo ke mayelana nawo ke ama SMS lawana ke ukuthi mhlambe kugabangeka ukuthi mhlambe khona akakwaziyo kodwa ngishilo ukuthi ke kamuva ke angaze ngithole lutho kuze kube manje ke okushoyo ke ukuthi cha wayenolwazi ke noma wayazi kodwa egcineni nje kunesinqumo esathathwa.
So will I correct then to paraphrase you, to understand you to mean the reason why Zandi was not even approached for a possible identification parade, it's because there was a bit of a suspicion that was hanging over her head about a possibility that she could have been involved, although it was not so clear from the beginning, but then later on, as investigation proceeded, she was cleared that she was not involved.
No, not in that context, my lord. The question was that was pondering us was what is it that she knew when
Yes.
there was this communication, not that she was involved. From the beginning, there was no indication that she knew. There was no evidence or anything implicating her. So the only question that needed to be verified by means of the investigation process is what is it that she knew in terms of that interaction with her sister. It was around that, my lord.
Kwasaqaleni-ke kwakungekho ubufakazi noma ke into eyayitholakala noma eyayikhona eyayithi ke uyambandakanyeka-ke kusona isigameko lesi. Kodwa-ke umbuzo wawumayelana nokuthi-ke kulokho okukhulumisana kwakhe noma lawo ma-SMS phakathi kwakhe-ke nosisi wakhe-ke yini le ayeyazi.
Thank you, Brigadier. Now you have interviewed Mrs. Makumalo, that is now the owner of the house, after having gone through his statement. Or let me find out from you. Did you go through her statement first before you went to interview her? Or did you interview her first before you went through his statement?
No, the statement went through. We interviewed her at a much later stage, my lord. So the first part was going through the statement for everyone in any event, my lord. So we went through the docket, we went through the statements, and the interview would have come at a later stage, not collectively, but for Mrs. Kumalo, I know it was way later, my lord.
Kuyena-ke uMakhumalo waqala-ke ukuthi ubheke-ke istatement ukuthi kubhalweni-ke kwistatement sakhe ukuthi-ke kube ne-interview naye-ke kanye futhi nabanye-ke kwenzeka kamuva-ke lokho.
Thank you. Now, let us start with Mrs. Makumalo. He went through a statement and then later on he went to go and interview her. Did she confirm the correctness of the content of statement that you had read with her?
My lord, so the consultation with, or the interview with Mrs. Kumalo came in this fold. She didn't come to us alone. She came with an attorney that was representing her, and that interaction happened at the offices of the DPP. So
Yes.
it wasn't a one-on-one as you normally have. For example, with Ms. Zandi Kumalo, it was one-on-one. We arranged and we met. But Mrs. Kumalo Senior came legally represented, so and the state advocate had to be involved. So it was a different approach in terms of that interaction. So it happened at the offices of the DPP.
Kuyena-ke uMakhumalo uma eza-ke akazanga yena ehamba yedwa, weza-ke ehamba nommeli, futhi-ke kwenzeka-ke kumahhovisi abashushisi noma-ke amahhovisi e-DPP. UZandi yena-ke uma sikhuluma naye-ke noma sim-interview weza eyihambela nje eyedwa.
Thank you, but the question is whether she came with a legal representative or not. You ultimately had to interview her, or you interviewed her. Did you then confirm the content of statement with her, what you read, what you got from the statement with her in that interviewing process?
What was confirmed, my lord, is that she stood by the position that they were intruders. But the statement was not confirmed word for word, if that's the question. But the essence of the interview was to say, yes, they were intruders, and then she disposed an affidavit to that effect.
Aza-ke noma ayizokwenza kwakuqinisekisa nje ukuthi ngempela-ke babe khona abantu abangena, hayi ukuthi-ke i-statement-ke kwasaqedwa-ke sonke efundelwa sona-ke, kodwa kwakuqinisekisa nje ukuthi ngempela babe khona abantu abangena.
Yes, that's the answer, my lord.
Thank you. Now, Brigadier,
Yes.
now you should bear in mind that I'm talking with an officer at the managerial level, a high-ranking officer. You see. Now, you agree with me that at the core of your investigation, it was the identity of the intruders, not so?
Yes, it is, my lord. But the identity, my understanding of identity does not solely rely on what will normally commence, my lord, during the ID parade. That is part of identification, but there are other forms of identification in terms of linking a person that is suspected to be involved. So identification, in my understanding, does not
Yes.
solely rely on the ID parade. There are other means, DNA, all manner of things that you can actually rely on. Locations, for example, if you can place a person to the crime scene with forensic evidence. So identification is broader. It's not solely focused on the ID parade.
Uma ukhuluma ngokuthi ke manje sikhuluma ke phecelezi ke identification noma ke ukuthi ubani ke owakwenza ke lokho asikhulumi nje kuphela ukuthi abantu bayomiswa ke lapha yana bese kuyakhonjwa iID parade kodwa ke izinto ke ezahlukahlukene ke ongakuhlanganisa ke nakho ke lokho noma ubufakazi ke obungatholakala obuhlanganisa ke umuntu nokuthi uyena osolakala noma owenze lokho.
Thank you, Brigadier.
Yes, my lord.
But would you then agree, having said what you've just said now, that the core of your investigation in this case was about the identity of the intruder? Who could have done this? Not so. That was at the core of your investigation. So,
Yes, so it's twofold in this sense, my lord. The answer is yes. At the beginning, after the analysis of the docket, where then this position was formed that they were intruders,
yes.
at that stage, the core was now to identify the people that now may have been involved for the commission of this heinous crime. At the stage when we got to Mrs. Kumalo Senior, the people already identified. We knew our target. So that identification process in terms of who was involved, that was already done. That train has already left the station, my lord, at that stage.
Ukuthi ke manje sibheka noma kuyabheka noma ufuna ukwaziwa ukuthi manje obani ke abenza lokhu nkathi ke yebo lokho kwakuphambili ke kulona uphenyo nangenkathi ke kune interview noma kukhulunyiswana naye ke uMrs Kumalo lokho ke manje kwakusekudluliwe ke babe sebasazi ke manje ukuthi obani ke.
Maybe I should put it this way, that the theme of your investigation, in whatever form that you had to do it, you had to establish who the intruders were. In other words, you would have used DNA, you would have used whatever methodology that you would have had then to establish the identity of the intruders. That is what I'm trying to say, not so.
Indeed, and I agree with Advocate Mnisi, but all that I'm saying, my lord, is that was at the beginning, because I wanted to put it in the sequence, otherwise we will get lost with each other. That was at the beginning. By the time we got, that's why I said, my lord, by the time we met Mrs. Kumalo Senior, it was at a much later stage. At that stage when we met her, these accused were all in sight. We already had evidence, and I think even they were on site, my lord. There was no need to get any assistance from her in terms of identifying them. We had passed. That's why I said the train had left the station at that stage, my lord.
Ukuthi ke manje obani noma kufuna obani noma ukuthi uzama uthola ukuthi ke obani abenza lokhu ke lokho kwenzeka ke noma ke uphenyo ke eqaleni kodwa manje ngenkathi sekukhulunywa naye ku Mrs Kumalo kwakuseku usasesazi ke noma ke futhi ke noma ke abasola laba ke manje sebe khona ke sebaziwa ingakho ngishilo ukuthi ngaleso sikhathi leso ke istimela sasihambile ke noma ke siphumile nase stage.
Thank you, Brigadier. We're not yet there. We're still talking about the witnesses. Whether the train has already left the station, we're not yet there. You see, we're talking about, it's a principal thing or an evidential thing that you had to investigate. But nonetheless, let me proceed. Now you go to Makumalo, you interviewed her, she tells you I was there, she tells you this is how the incident happened. Did she tell you whether or not she could be able to identify any of those suspects who got into the house?
My lord, I don't recall the exact location. We were taking notes, and the state advocate was taking notes. I don't recall, my lord. All I know, what was prevalent for me is that she confirmed that they were intruders, in the essence of basically that. But the specifics, insofar as that part is concerned, I don't even recall if that question was posed, my lord.
Mela nalokho ke ukuthi washo ke ukuthi ke angakwazi ke ukuthi abakhomba abantu labo athi bangena endlini ngiyazi ukuthi umshushisi wethatha ama notes ngangithatha ama notes angisakhombela nokuthi lo mbuzo wabuzwa yini ukuthi nje waqinisekisa ukuthi ngempela bakhona abantu ababengenile endlini ngalelo langa.
Thank you.
Insofar, sorry, Advocate Mnisi. Insofar, what I can remember with the identification parade, because that came out, we interrogated the part of her identifying the wrong person, you know. So that was, insofar as I could recall, my lord, as to whether she can identify the new ones. That's why I said I don't seem to have a memory that we got there, but we interrogated the part of the previous ID parade.
Ngiyazi ukuthi sakhulumisana namasaxoxisana ke naye mayelana ke nokhomba ke okwakwenzekile noma ke ID parade eyendluleke umuntu loyo orongo amkhomba ke ingakho ngisho ukuthi lana ke mayelana nalapha ke abasha ke angikhumbula ukuthi leyo mbuzo loyo wabuzwa.
Thank you, Brother T. Let me give you just a 30-second background about the prosecutors who you were involved with. There were 3, and amongst them, they boasted an experience of almost 90 years in prosecution, actually more than 90 years in prosecution.
I don't know what the relevance of this question is, and also all these aspects that were canvassed in consultation. If Advocate Mnisi can perhaps demonstrate to the court what the relevance of all these questions are.
As it pleases the court, my lord, for starters, there is nothing known as a prosecutor and a witness privilege. I haven't heard that. Number 2, the issue of this being a prosecutor-led investigation came from this witness, my lord. So it will be a travesty of justice if I do not go into the core of the issues that the team of prosecutors had to lead the investigating team on, because that's not a secret. So my colleague would just be patient, you course understand where I'm getting to. The reason why I am saying this, Brigadier, that the team of prosecutors that you were involved with, we are actually very privileged to have worked with such an experienced team of prosecutors. As I'm saying it to you, amongst the 3 of them, they boasted of an experience. They had an experience of more than 90 years in prosecution. I'm talking about Advocate Makhwata, Advocate Leonard, and Advocate Baloi. More than 90 years experience in prosecution. And come I tell you, as a prosecutor, this is not a beautiful lecture, this is what it is. But as a prosecutor, the minute the issue of an identity of a suspect gets to be at issue, and there are witnesses who saw the incident happen, the first question that will be asked would be, because you were there and you are able to describe how this incident happened, are you in a position to describe, or will you be in a position to identify 1 or 2 of those perpetrators? Are you able to describe them? That is the interest that a prosecutor will have in matters of such nature. That is where I'm getting to.
As a complex one, it is a fact the witnesses considered that there was no identification parades given reasons. It's a matter that my learned friend can raise an argument. It serves no purpose for him to try and probe this witness further on the reasons why there was no identification parade. It takes this matter absolutely nowhere, my lord.
As it pleases the court, Manuel, I'm not talking about an identification parade. I'm talking about the identity of the perpetrators. This witness said he read the statement. After having read the statement, he then went on to interview those witnesses who were in their house, who are telling a story about these perpetrators. So there's no way in which this does not serve this court, Manuel, because at the core of what the state has brought to this court is the identity of the perpetrators. Thank you, Manuel. Now, that was just a very brief discourse on what the prosecutor would do when confronted with a matter that involves the identity of a perpetrator. Thank you. Now, it doesn't look to me, and I'm saying this with the greatest caution because I wasn't there. I'm trying to discern, I'm actually trying to discern it from your answers. It doesn't look to me like there was much effort that came from the joint military team, from the joint team, that is yourself, from members of the subs, and the team of the prosecutors to probe Ms. I'm saying what now on Ms. Makumalo, to probe on Makumalo on whether or not she'd be able to identify the suspects or any of the suspects as one of the perpetrators who got into the house. But nonetheless, let us get into a statement.
So, you want us to go to the statement or should I respond to these utterances? I don't know.
That was just by way of introducing you to the fact that you are going into her statements.
All right. No,
Thank you.
Noted, my lord. But
Thank you.
what I would like to say while
Yes.
we're going to her statement is that firstly, my lord, and I did indicate this, the identity of the suspects, starting from accused 1 and 2, came by the way of Mr. Absalom Zungu, Constable Zungu, and then subsequently his father. We did not rely on the witnesses of the people who were in the house to identify the accused. Now, subsequent to us getting to accused number 2, my lord, that exhibit HH and subsequent to JJ led us to again accuse 1, 2 himself, 3, 4, and 5. It was then supported by statements around them. So that is how the accused were then identified in this matter. So it wasn't, because I seem to be getting an impression from Advocate Mnisi, and that's what I'm trying to explain, that it wasn't that after we analyzed the docket, now we had to sit with the witnesses in order for them to help us identify the perpetrators. Investigation was done, they were identified, there was then a consultation. That's why I said at the time when Mrs. Kumalo met us, the train had left the station because the accused were already identified. It was just to clear certain aspects during that consultation.
Manje ke kulolu daba ke angikusho ke lo labo ke abamangalela noma abasolwa ke uqale kwaba uyena ke Constable Zungu kwazoba ubaba wakhe ke ubaba Absalom Zungu la khona ke kuzovela khona ke noma kukhonjwa umsolo wokuqala kanye nowesibili. Sesifika manje ke kumsolo wesibili ke ila manje kuvela ke istatement lezo HH kanye no JJ izikhomba ke manje ukuqala kumsolo wokuqala kanye naye futhi wesibili bese manje ke kufaka naye ke umsolo wesithathu wesine kanye nowesihlanu. Uma kuhlangana nofakazi bekungasibonaka ukuthi abasilekelele ukuthi manje asithole abasola kodwa ke lokho bese kwenzekileke.
And then furthermore, my lord, when that consultation in my recollection took place, Advocate Leonard and Market were not present. It was Advocate Baloyi, the legal representative of Mrs. Kumalo, and us. Advocate Leonard, insofar as that specific consultation, those two advocates were not present, my lord.
Futhi ke kuloko kukhulumisana ke kwangalelo langa ke okwenzeka ke kanye naye ke uMakhumalo abanye abashushisi laba ababili babengekho ke uLeonard kanye naye ke uMaphathe kodwa kwakuyena ke uadvocate uBaloyi kanye futhi nommeli wakhe ke uMakhumalo.
Yes, I'm done, my lord.
Thank you, Brigadier. So you're basically saying there were instances in the investigation of this case where the matter was as it was investigated, was led by Advocate Baloyi alone, and there were instances where it was led by Advocate Baloyi with the two ladies. Is that what you're saying?
My Lord, my understanding, which was the same principle with us, I was identified as the lead investigating officer. Advocate Baloyi from the start was clear that he will be the one leading the prosecution. So that is why even the point of contact, whenever we wanted to engage, I will speak to Advocate Baloyi. That was made clear from the beginning. So there's no arrangement that I will have personally with either Advocate Makwate and Leonard. It was always through Advocate Baloyi because he was identified as such a lead prosecutor in the matter.
Manje kumasifikelela kulithimba ke elishushisayo ke nanjengoba bokwenzeka nakuthina ke amaphoyisa ukuthi mina ke ngaqoka nanjengo lo ohola ithimba labaphenyi nakubashushisike kwakuyena ke Advocate Baloyi baseqaleni la satshelwa khona ukuthi uyena ke umshushisi oholayo.
Thank you, Brigadier. Well, it doesn't really matter whether at all material times they did a joint drill or they did a drill in a disjointed way. All that matters is what is now being presented to court. Do you understand?
Yes, but what
Thank
I'm not so sure which part, my Lord. I'm simply presenting that there were these three advocates, but the lead prosecutor, which was identified, is Advocate Baloyi. That's the essence of my answer.
Engikushoyo mina ukuthi kwakunalabashushisi abathathu kodwa ke esatshelwa ukuthi uyena ke ohola ithimba lelo Advocate Baloyi.
Thank you. Now, you were saying at the time when you interviewed Miss Makumalo, the train had already left at the station. You had already identified the perpetrators as being all the accused persons that are seated here in court. Is that what you just said?
Yes, that's what I said. They were
Thank
already
you.
linked to this matter, my Lord.
Engikushoyo ukuthi ngenkathi ke kune interview kanye naye ke uMakhumalo abasolwa ke phambi kwenkantolo babe sebehlanganiswa ke naleli cala leli.
Are you then saying that what the witnesses who were in the house are saying about the identity of the perpetrators in their statements was of no value?
No, that's not what I'm saying, my
What
Lord.
are you saying?
And I think I dealt with this part, my Lord, that the identification does not simply rely on the ID parade. You need to look at it in that context. Identification can be by means of scientific evidence, eyewitnesses, and I can deal with it, my Lord, step by step. That's why I started from Absolute Zongo. That is a form of identification. It doesn't mean that one must stand in front of a suspect in a line-up. The fact that someone mentions a particular person and identifies him, that is identification, my Lord. We get to the accused, statements are then obtained in form of a confession, then evidence is followed to corroborate that. That brings other accused into the picture. Evidence is found to support what they're saying. That is a form of identification. So an ID parade is not the only form of identifying someone. We did not rely on these witnesses because the evidence was there. They were pointers to identify the accused that are before court.
Engikushoyo ukuthi kuhanjwe ke kuyomiswa ke abantu laphayana bese kuyokhonjwa ke akusiyona ke ukuphela kwendlela ke leyo ekhona la ekukhonjwa khona ke noma kushiwo ukuthi yibona ke noma uyena loyana esikhulumile ngaye ubaba uZungu ila khona ke amshoyo ashilo ukuthi ubani nobani bese kwatholakala istatement futhi ezichasa khona ke lokho noma ke ehambelana nako ke lokho okusho ukuthi ke zikhona ke ezinye indlela ke zokuthi ke kukhonjwe noma kushiwo ke ukuthi ubani noma wobani kungasiyona kuphela nje iID parade.
Thank you, Brigadier. Thank you, Brigadier.
And I think so, my Lord, just to add, and my view, my Lord, that is why the court will recall that I said even after the statements, confessions, documents were made, I was of the view that we should try and find, and that was a position that was taken, to corroborate what was contained there, because one will want to get objective evidence than just to rely on someone who says, this is the person I saw, and then you leave it at that. It doesn't work like that, my Lord. Even when the accused himself implicates himself, you try to get evidence or you must get evidence to corroborate what is saying, and by getting objective and supporting evidence. That is how I'm of the view things should have been done, and that's why we did what we did, my lord.
Futhi ke noma sekuwukuthi ke umsolwa ke noma ummangalelo uyasho ke ukuthi ke yebo ngangingxenye ngangikhona ke, kodwa ke awunciki nje kuloko kuphela ke, kuyingakho kufanele uhambe ke uyobheka noma uthole ke futhi obunye ubufakazi obuzohambisana nayo ke leyo nto leyo ayishoyo, ingakho ke senza ke ngendlela esenza ngayo.
Thank you, Brigadier. I want us to narrow my question or this issue. Are you then saying, because you've just said that when you interviewed these witnesses, the train has already left the station. Are you then saying what these witnesses are saying in their statement, which you read, could not have assisted you in any way to find a collaboration, to use your word, that the people which you have arrested were those people who got into the house on the 26th of November 2014? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not what I'm saying, my lord.
Good.
So yeah, it's not what I'm saying, my lord. So perhaps let's understand when did I come in. This is not, because that example I think will apply on an investigating officer who starts the matter from the beginning, my lord. Where the matter is brought before you, then you build your case. And I think then this question that Advocate Mnisi is asking me will be relevant. It's not the same situation here. The case was already open.
Sorry. You say where a question is relevant or irrelevant?
No, I'm saying in this matter.
Yes.
That example. So I'm saying there are two scenarios.
Yes.
Where if a matter is initiated and then you become the first investigating officer, the question that Mr. Advocate Mnisi is asking me will be relevant, my lord.
Okay.
But in this particular instance, where when I came in, there were various investigators. These witnesses gave statements to different investigating officers who dealt with this matter. Then my turn came where then this matter was given to me, my lord. You were not starting the matter from the beginning, and that is why I indicated that when I did the fact-finding mission, I relied on what was contained around, then later I went in to collaborate what was said outside. So it's not like a matter where it's at the initiation stage. The statements were speaking for themselves and indicating what was there, my lord. So there was a clear indication of where the investigation should go after one is made an objective position of saying, based on the evidence, there were intruders. So in trying to find the intruders, it was very clear. Otherwise, my lord, if one had to go to these witnesses, re-interview them, you'd have taken statements after statements, which was done in this matter. Some of these witnesses have given more than 2-3 statements. Now, there will be no need for me to do the same process, my lord, because they've been interviewed in numerous times by different investigating officers.
Manje ke umbuzo loyo ke ubuzo ba umbuzo ke ukuwona ke uma bekuwukuthi ke noma sikhuluma lana ngecala la khona ke umseshike noma ke umphenyi unikezwa icala kuseqaleni uqala ke uphenyo lakhe usehamba nalo, kodwa ke lana kwenzekile ukuthi abofakazi lana ke bekunabaphenyi ke ababekhona ngaphambi kwami, ukhulunyiwe nabo ofakazi kunestatement eyithathiwe kubona abanye babo ke labafakazi banestatement eyindlulileke kwistatement esisodwa noma embili abazenza ke bese ngeke sibe khona ke sidinga manje ukuthi ngiphinde futhi ngiyothatha ezinye istatement kubona ke asikhulumi la ngophenyo obeluqala eqaleni, kodwa babe khona ababangaphambili kumina abenza ke uphenyo.
Thank you, Brigadier. Let me further simplify my simple question. In simplification of my simple question, the simplified question would be, did the information and the interview that you had with the witnesses in their, who were in their house assist you to find some form of a collaboration, to use your word, which could then have said to you, these are the people who were involved in the commission of the offense?
My lord, the corroboration, it was insofar as one, confirming that there were intruders, there were two, the description of the dreadlocks, and the demands of money, cell phones and money, and I'm saying corroboration because obviously it was contained then in the confessions of both accused, by the way. So the corroboration, it was insofar as that, but none of the witnesses that were in the house were utilized to do a formal identification parade. These accused were linked by evidence that I've testified about, my lord, and 1 and 2 then also made confessions to that effect, my lord.
Lana ke bengasukuthi ke manje ke ofakazi lana bekufuneka ukuthi kubaletheke noma bakhulumeke ngokumayelana ke nokuthi obani ke laba babekhona ukuqinisekisa nje ukuthi yebo nanjengoba kushiwo ke ukuthi babekhona abantu abangena futhi ke kuba khona istatement lezi ezenziwa ke umsolo wesibili kanye ke nowokuqala ngokusho ukuthi ke kwenzekani ke noma ukuthi futhi babekhona abantu abangena besho ke futhi funa ama cell phones kanye futhi nemali.
And my lord, I think I can understand where Advocate Mnisi is going, because I think my understanding, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I seems to be thinking, he's thinking of an approach where, and it's done, where you'll get a docket. Now to kick off in terms of identifying the suspect, you rely on the witnesses. A different approach was done on this matter, my lord. That is why I even said we started with a cold case analysis, identify individual, try to rely on objective and forensic evidence supported by witnesses that you can count on. So it's not the other way around where Advocate Mnisi thinks things would have kicked off. Yes, in an ideal situation, you would have kicked off from the witnesses before you even pursue the suspect to say, look, I've identified this, can you assist me? You build your case there. This was not the case, and I've indicated, my lord, why? Because of these two assertions that were there, or allegations. Then subsequently, when Absalom Zungu came into the picture, which was not associated to the people who were in the house, we worked on that angle and built a case from there up to the time that all the 5 accused, my lord, were arraigned.
Ngezwa ke la ayakhona ke noma ke uhlangothi ke ayakulona ke uadvocate Mnisi ke kodwa ke lana ke akusona ke indlela ke ekwenzeka ngakhona ke ngoba ngishilo ukuthi kwakunale insolo ezazikhona ke ingakho ngathi ke abameke ofakazi ke ngithatha olunye uhlangothi la khona asengena khona ke Absalom Zungu ila khona ke ekwaholela ekuthini ke bese kuboshwa abasola bobahlala.
Yes, my lord.
Thank you, Brigadier. You know, Brigadier, that is exactly your problem. You're trying to understand me. You're trying to read my mind. Don't do that. Understand the question that I am asking you. Because when you're going to try and read my mind, you'll never be able to do that. All that you can do, and I'm requesting you to do, is understand my question and respond to my question. Do you understand?
My lord, I understand, but
Thank you.
I try to assist in responding when the same question is asked over and over and over again, because then what it tells me is that what I'm telling the advocate Mnisi, he doesn't understand it, and that is why I try then to explain and try to read as to where he's coming from, my lord, because if you give one answer more than twice and you get the same question, clearly there's no understanding between us, my lord.
Ngezwa ke kodwa ke uma kuukuthi ke uzobuzwa ke umbuzo wodwa ke uphinda phindwa ke lokho kusho ukuthi ke khona ke ungazwani okukhona ke ingakho ke sengichaza uma ngiphendula.
Thank you. Now, my simple question, Brigadier. Remember I said to you, I'm going to simplify my simple question to you and oppose it in the following way. Did the information that is contained in the statement of the witnesses who were in the house and the subsequent interview that you had with those people in the house assist you to find a collaboration that you were looking for in order to tie these accused persons with the commissioner? That was my simple question. I'm still trying, you know, to decipher what your answer is in the paragraph that you've just given. Thank you, madam.
That's a good case, my lord. I think we've been harping on the same strings the better part of the day. Brigadier Gininda is here to give evidence. It's not his duty to answer questions as to, identity. Evidence has been presented before court as far back as 1972 in the Mtetwa case. The issue of the identity will be argued before this court. It's not, we submit, my lord, that it is not for Brigadier Gininda to have to answer questions regarding identity. He presents evidence, and it's for the court to make a call and for counsel to argue on the question of identity, not this witness, my lord. We submit that it will serve no purpose, as we've indicated, to keep on asking this witness on the issue of identity.
As it pleases the court, my lord, I think the state is miles away from where we are. I am not saying that this witness must try to give an identity of those witnesses. This is an investigating officer. The investigating officer comes and tells this court that I am alive to the fact that this case, that at the core of this case is a question of identity. And in order for me to say with certainty that these accused persons that are before court here, I interviewed those people who were in the house and I asked them questions that are relevant to identification of a person who committed this thing. I'm not saying to Mr. Gininda, how did the suspect so look like? No, I'll never do that. I know it's not you, but you are an investigating officer. I know Mtetwa. And in fact, Mtetwa does not state the issues that have been raised by my colleague. I'll come and deal about Mtetwa later on. I know Mtetwa by heart. I don't even have to refer in the book of what Mtetwa is saying. But at the core of my question is, in you trying to find a collaboration that these are the accused persons, these are the correct suspects that are before court, what information did you rely on? That is the reason why I'm asking you. Did the statement that were given by the people who were in the house, number one. Number two, did the interview that you had with the people who were in the house when this incident happened assist you to find a collaboration in order to pin this accused person with the commission of the offense or not? That is all that I want to know from you, Brigadier. I'm not saying identify the people. You and me, we're not there. Exactly. So I'll be the dumbest and the dumbest of all the dumbiest to ask you that question. I'll never do that. Please understand me in that context. And I beg my colleague to understand me in that context. And I beg the court as well to understand me in that context. Thank you. Now, I'm not so sure, my lord, whether I need to proceed with this, whether there should be a response from a colleague. Oh, thank you. There is silence from my colleague. So basically, that is my question, sir.
My lord, so the collaboration, I think I've dealt with it as well. Both evidence in chief, and I think when I was dealing also with Mr. Ramsipil, my lord, I did indicate, and I'll go straight to accused number 3, Mr. Mnisi, Advocate Mnisi's client, that when his name came up, then we had to pursue Cleveland case 9602-2015. Now, when we read, I'll deal with the cell phone, for example, like my lord, that when the photos that were taken on the date, according to the encryption on, for example, on the date of the 26th, where accused 3, you can see him wearing a khaki top. I did say, my lord, previously that you could corroborate that with what was contained in the statements of 1 or 2 witnesses who were in the house, who said one of the intruders with the dreadlocks was wearing a khaki or brownish jacket. So I've referred, as I was testifying, my lord, I referred to what we found and corroborated that with the statements of the people who were in the house. I think I did get to that effect, my lord.
Ngikhulumile ke uma sikhuluma ke manje ngokuthi ke ukuhlanganisa lokho nako nalokho ke okutshelwayo ke ibona ke ufakazi. Angiye ke kuyena ke umsolo wesithathu ke omela uyena ke uadvocate Mnisi ukuthi uma ngaba igama lakhe selivela ke manje kuyobhekwa ke icala leli lase Cleveland ila kwatholakala khona ke manje kuyithombe lezi zatholakala ukuthi wayenama-dreadlocks egqoke-ke futhi-ke beige noma-ke ubrown okuyilokho-ke futhi okushiwo yilabo-ke abantu besendlini ukuthi-ke omunye wayenama-dreadlocks egqoke-ke okwakubrown noma okwakubeige ngombala. Uma ngikhuluma-ke ngokuhlangana-ke noma-ke ngezinto noma kukhulunywa into eyodwa ngikhuluma ngako kona lokho.
I further, my Lord, recall that I've mentioned that there was assertions in the statements of the people in the house, because that's what we're focusing on, that the perpetrators or the intruders demanded cell phones and money. That was corroborated by Exhibit HA and JJ. Just referring just to the two, not going to accuse one, my Lord.
Ngikhulumile noma ngishilo-ke futhi ukuthi-ke kubantu ababesendlini-ke bashilo ukuthi laba bangena-ke bafuna-ke ama-cellphones kanye nemali. Lokho-ke uyakuthola-ke laphayana-ke ku-HH kanye naye-ke u-JJ ngikhuluma ngayo umsolo wesibili hayi owokuqala.
Yes, this is some of them, my Lord, but I dealt with this, and I'm just taking it from the top so that we don't have to repeat everything that I've dealt with before, my Lord.
Bese ngikushilo-ke lokho ukuthi nje ngingafuniki ukuthi siphinde-ke into bese ngikhulumile ngaphambilini.
Yes, I'm done, my Lord.
Thank you, Brigadier. I don't know what is Esperanto in my question. Esperanto is basically a language that is not understandable in my question. Did that assist you or not?
But that's what I was answering. I was answering that, my Lord. I was understanding the question to say, did they help me in the collaboration? And that's what I've just said, that what the people who were in the house were saying, it assisted to corroborate the evidence that I was obtaining. Description of the intruder with a brown or khaki jacket, that was said by the statements of the people who were inside the house. Evidence is found by people who are outside, supported by forensic evidence in terms of the photos that come from the cell phone of accused number 3. It's a collaboration that I'm talking about, my Lord.
Ikona-ke lokho engikuphendulayo ukuthi yebo-ke kwangisiza-ke ngoba-ke abantu babesendlini bayasho ukuthi wayenama-dreadlocks omunye egqoke brown noma-ke ukhakhi-ke. Lokho-ke kuyatholakala manje uma kutholakala loyo makhalekhukhwini iy'tatimende nazo futhi-ke ziyakusho kona lokho. Ikona lokho engikuphendulayo.
Thank you. Finally, you are saying, yes, indeed, the statements that were taken from those witnesses in the house did to some extent assist me to find some certain degree of collaboration with regard to the complicity of accused number 3 in this case. Let me confine myself to accused number 3.
Yes, but
Thank
what?
you.
Yes, but what should be so that there's no misunderstanding, my Lord. No mention of accused 3 was named. In other words, the statements of the people who were inside the house did not mention accused 3 by name. They did not know him. I'm simply saying in terms of the description that they gave to say the suspect that was carrying a firearm with dreadlocks was wearing a khaki top or brownish top. If you then goes to the downloads that were done on the phone of accused 3 under Cleveland case 96 of 2015, my Lord, you do find a photo with the date of 26 October 2014 where the accused is wearing a khaki top. So that is a collaboration I'm referring to, my Lord.
Kwi-statement zabo-ke abantu ababesendlini akukho la khona abathi-ke umsolo wesithathu ngoba-ke bangamazi-ke kodwa bayasho ukuthi-ke omunye walaba bangena wayenama-dreadlocks owayegqoke futhi-ke ukhakhi noma-ke okubrown. Manje-ke usuya-ke kwilona-ke uCleveland leyana 96 of 2015 uyathola kuma-downloads la khona-ke kwi-date yange-26 October 2014 umsolo nama-dreadlocks ugqoke futhi-ke okukhakhi noma-ke okubrown. Yilokho-ke ngikhuluma ngako ukuthi-ke ila ekuhlangana khona.
Thank you. Now at least there's a little fragment of a walk side by side between me and you. At least we're able to say yes. Thank you. Now, in view of that yes answer, we are going to go back to the very same exercise to find out if the collaboration that you have said you were able to get from this statement of these witnesses actually did assist you to find that collaboration to pin accused number 3 with the commission, or to which led you to conclude that indeed accused number 3 is also complicit in the commission of this offense. Now, this is a hierarchy on how we'll be dealing with that aspect. We're going to start with Ms. Makumalo. Her name is Stephness. Statement is statement number A58. Look in the list of state witnesses. I just don't have that indictment with me, but certainly she is mentioned as one of the state witnesses. I just want to be very certain, my lord. So that, my lord, it doesn't come up later on to say that, hey, Mr. Mnisi, you say Ms. Mafumalo was in the list of indictment, but she does not specifically mention what number is that. Sorry, man, I did not bring mine. Mine is properly marked. Yes, the statement was discovered, man. I just want to say that her name in the list of state witnesses, but nonetheless, my lord, it is beyond reproach. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my lord. These are the effects of the aircon that I'm standing right under. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, my lord. Thank you, Mr. Advocate Kumar, for your assistance in identifying the number where witness Mrs. Stephness Kumalo is annotated. She is appearing at witness number 2, my lord, in the list of state witnesses. Now, indeed, we have been provided with a number 58, which is one of the statements that Mrs. Makumalo submitted. Maybe, Brigadier, let me put you at ease. You know, we're not disputing, me and accused number 3, we're not disputing that they could have been intruders. They could have been intruders, we don't know. You see?
Yes, my lord, I'm listening.
Yes. There could have been 1 intruder, there could have been 2, there could have been 3, 4, 5, etc. We don't know. Yes. So don't get worried when you re-emphasize the fact that there were intruders or no intruders. We don't know. You see, we therefore can't dispute that. But there is one thing that we're disputing. Thank you. Now, A number 58. Ms. Makumalo, Stephness Kumalo, narrates this incident the same way as it has been narrated before court by Matala, the other Twala, not the Twala that was apparently shot in the leg, but that should be the other Twala. What is the name? Mthokozisi Twala. I want to say Mthokozisi Twala. Same way in which it was also narrated by Zandi Kumar, that they were indeed, as they were seated there, they were accosted by 2 unknown people in the evening when they were seated in their dining room. That is basically the story. That is what Ms. Makumalo is also confirming. You see? Now, as I have told you, that what is at the core of this case is the identity of the perpetrators. The investigating officer who took down this statement had it in mind to ask Ms. Makumalo and say to her, Ms. Makumalo, because you saw this thing, it happened in your house, it was there, you gave me how it happened. Now let us come to the identity of these perpetrators. That is at the core, that is what is at the core of this trial. And this is what Makumalo said. I don't want to read the whole statement to avoid prolixity, you see, because we don't dispute what these other witnesses have said. That is A number 58. I know that procedurally I need to authenticate this statement. But it will be a fallacy if the state says, yeah, no. If the state says what is owning this statement, we don't know whether the statement was made by Ms. Makumalo or not, because we got it from them. Otherwise, they should have annotated to us, they should have indicated to us and drew up all the list of the statements that they would have required us to authenticate and said, no, this one's not in our name. You must authenticate. We're distancing ourselves from these statements. I had one judge expressing that view, and it was a very intelligent view, that the state cannot give you information, come back and say you need to authenticate it. Otherwise, they are saying what is owning that information. I just forgot the name of the judge, but it's going to come up very quick. I realize that my colleague has got an issue to take up.
As a court, please, my lord, the rules of evidence are clear and they must be complied with. It's got nothing to do with the state. Statements are discovered to the defense. It's now for the defense, if they want to use those statements, to follow the rules of evidence. It's got nothing to do with the state disavowing a statement or whatever. That's what the rules of evidence dictate, my lord.
As it pleases the court, my lords, it has got everything to do with the state's genuineness in assisting this court to come to a just and equitable finding. The state cannot send, my lord, out a team of investigators and say, go get us information. And the team of investigators bring back statements and say, this is the type of investigation that we have found. And then later on the state does disclosure or give the state that information. And during the trial, the state says no. When the defense wants to use that information, then the state says no, you must authenticate it. It does not work out like that. We got it from them. Unless the state says we don't believe in this statement, then that will be something else. But nonetheless, my lord, nonetheless, I know the rules of procedure. I am going to request that I provisionally be permitted to use this statement to pursue my line of cross-examination with a sincere belief that if the state proceeds with his argument that we need to authenticate this statement, we will then be calling the person who made this statement, for instance, Cletness Kumaro. But I'm requesting, my lord, that I be provisionally be permitted to proceed with my line of cross-examination with the understanding that later on I'll be calling Ms. Makumalo. If the state persists, then I need to call her. Thank you, ma'am.
Says you know the rules of evidence.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. So
that is what I'm saying. That is part of the rules of evidence.
Proceed as you understand them.
As it pleases the court, my lord. Thank you. Brigadier.
Yes, my lord.
As I have said, that I won't be going through the whole statement because that is not what I'm interested in. I'm only interested in paragraph 6 of that statement.
Yes, my lord, I'm listening.
Thank you. I realize that you might be tired of reading. I'm going to read the content of this paragraph 6 into record myself.
Yes,
Thank
my
you.
lord.
It reads as follows. I then saw the kitchen door opening slowly, and an unknown black male came in carrying a firearm. He was wearing a hat, but I cannot tell what color it was. He was also wearing a beige jacket. Another unknown black male then entered the house. The first one that was carrying a firearm had short dreadlocks that hang up to his neck. Amen. Close bracket. That is what I'm interested in. Do you follow?
Yes, I followed the sentence, my lord. What was read to me, I
It's
do
not a
follow.
sentence. It's,
I mean the
it's
paragraph.
almost a paragraph, yes.
Yeah, well, it's not done. It's not the complete paragraph, but I followed basically, my lord, what Advocate Mnisi is saying.
Thank you. That is all that I'm interested in. I may repeat it for sake of brevity.
No,
If
no,
it
no.
needs to be, but I don't need to do.
I think we understand each other.
Thank
my lord.
you.
I hear. I've got a statement in front of me, so we are on the same
Thank
page.
you, Brigadier. Now, what Mrs. Makumalo is doing here is basically describing the suspect. Sorry. Actually, one of the suspects that she saw on that day, particularly the one that was carrying the firearm, and which the state drums so hardly and wants this court to believe that it is accused number 3. But let us analyze the description that Makumalo actually gave with regard to the suspect that was carrying the firearm. She says the first one that was carrying a firearm had short dreadlocks that hang up to his neck. Now, having read this statement as an investigator, and having come to this paragraph, and having shown that Mrs. Makumalo says that the first suspect that was carrying the firearm had short dreadlocks that hang up to his neck. Were there any further questions that you asked her in relation to the to her identification of the suspect?
So my lord, firstly, I think, and I'll say that I think maybe Advocate Mnisi maybe missed it. So because I dealt with this part, I said you missed
You
this.
say Advocate Mnisi must be doing what?
No, I said
Sometimes
maybe
when
you
you
miss-
talk, I'm sorry, Brigadier, and sometimes when you talk.
I hear you. No, it's fine. I'll try to
Down.
speak loud. I'll
Yeah.
try to speak loud. I'm saying, I think Advocate Mnisi missed this part because I did deal with it, my lord, that the witnesses who were in the house, they made different statements. Now, for example, the statement that I'm referred to is A58 of Ms. Letnes Kumalo. The first statement she made is A12. If you look at what we've disclosed to them, it's A12. That is the first statement. So that is why it's important to look at each statement and so that one can follow when this one was made, it was in relation to what. The first statement that was made after the incident happened, it was day after, 27th of November 2014. There she simply describes the dreadlocks, and we can go to it because it's a very short statement. She simply says one of the intruders had dreadlocks. She doesn't describe, it's contained in this statement, whether they were up to the neck or not. That is the first statement she made a day just after the incident, few hours. This one that Advocate Mnisi is referring to was made in November, days later, and this was, I think, in preparation of the ID parade that they were trying to look at, if my memory serves me correctly, my lord, in relation to this Mr. Mbata I was talking about. So that is why I'm saying you need to look into it in that context. Now, when you analyze the two statements, my lord, you cannot then say you want now to rely on the one that says the dreadlocks were up to the neck and ignore the other one where she says the person had dreadlocks, because in both statements she doesn't, and I'm talking specific with regard to Advocate Mnisi's client, nowhere does she say it's accused 3 specifically. She simply describes that one of the intruders, the one that was wearing a beige jacket, and other witnesses, and when we get to them you'll see that, my lord, they'll say a brown jacket, was simply having dreadlocks. So in one statement she says dreadlocks, in the other one she says up to the neck. So you've got two descriptions of dreadlocks. The bottom line, what I was saying, my lord, in collaboration when I was asked by Advocate Mnisi, is that you can see indeed that accused 3 on the 26th of October 2014 had dreadlocks. That's the essence of my answer insofar as the dreadlocks are concerned, my lord.
Kule statement esakheke uMakhumalo kufundeka ngalendlela ke ithi lo owokuqala owayephethe ispam wayenama dreadlocks amafishane ayephelela khona la emqaleni noma entanyeni-ke. Ingaba khona-ke omunye umbuzo owalandela-ke uma esho lokhu uMakhumalo? Impendulo ithi-ke uma ubheka lesi istatement u-A58 esenziwa-ke ngoNovemba wawo-ke unyaka lowo wesigameko, sikhona-ke istatement sokuqala-ke asenza uMakhumalo wona, sona-ke wasenza-ke kwilanga elilandelayo ngazo i-27. Lapho-ke ukhuluma nje kuphela-ke ngama-dreadlocks-ke. Manje uma sikhuluma-ke manje ngalokuhlanganisa-ke noma ukuthola-ke lokhu okuhlanganayo-ke okushiwo yibona-ke noma-ke okukhulunywa yibona-ke abantu noma-ke bona-ke ofakazi laba, siyazi-ke ukuthi nge-26 zika-October 2014 yena-ke amele u-advocate Mnisi unumber 3 wayenawo-ke ama-dreadlocks. Manje-ke awukwazi ukuthi ubheke lesi kuphela-ke istatement u-A58 ungasibhekanga esinye lesi engikhuluma ngaso. Uma ngingaphazami-ke futhi cabanga ukuthi lesi istatement uma ngabe sasenziwa-ke kwakulungiselelwa-ke i-ID parade le eyayizoba khona.
Yes, my lord. And the A12 was made, like I said, my lord, basically few hours after the incident happened, because it's basically the following day. It was commissioned on the 27th of October 2014 at 1500 hours. She was narrating what she saw. She described the person with dreadlocks, not that they're on the neck. A month later, couple of weeks, because it's November, then she says they were up to the neck. But like I said, my lord, it was in relation, insofar as I can recall, to the ID parade, and that is why I'm emphasizing that you can't now say this is now the proper identification of the person with the dreadlocks, because then what do you say about the one that she made just few hours after the incident happened?
Ngoba lesi-ke sona-ke sange-27 amahora nje ambalwa-ke emuva kokuthi isigameko senzeka-ke la khona nje akhuluma kuphela-ke ngama-dreadlocks. Ingakho ngisho-ke manje-ke ukuthi awukwazi ukuthi ungathatha njena lesi-ke la asho ukuthi ama-dreads aphela kuphi-ke, kodwa lesi-ke usishaye indiva sona-ke.
Yes, my lord, that's my answer.
Thank you, Brigadier. My question, Brigadier, is, actually my question was, and still is, did you take up the issue of the identification subsequent to paragraph 6, having read paragraph 6, take up the issue of the description of the perpetrator who had or was in possession of a firearm on the day of the incident? Did you take that issue with Ms. Makhumalo?
I don't recall, my lord. But like I don't recall. But like I said, my lord, at that stage when we met Ms. Makhumalo, the accused were identified. That part we were already far ahead. This was not the beginning. That is why, my lord, if you look and that is why I try to explain that and that's my understanding, and I'm sorry if I understand Mr. Mnisi wrong, Advocate Mnisi, that when A12 was composed and then subsequently A58 was composed, it was at an initial stage, my lord. Police were trying to find grabs of identifying the perpetrators. There was nothing else they had, my lord, which is a different situation when I came on board. So we started on a different angle, and it will create a confusion if we don't understand these angles, because this was the initial stage. They needed to rely on the people who were in the house to identify the perpetrators. When I got involved, I received information initially from Zungu, then Mr. Absalom Zungu kicks in. We got to accused number 1, then the first confession kicks in, supported by confession by conduct in terms of pointing out, my lord. Then exhibit HA and JJ kicked in. So we built on that. It's not the same approach as it happened here. We approached this matter from different angles.
Lana-ke kuzofanele-ke sibuke-ke ukuthi-ke uma kuthathwa le statement-ke kwakusemqaleni-ke okwenzeka-ke noma kwenziwa kwalo-ke uphenyo, futhi-ke nohlangothi-ke olwaluthathwa-ke lwaluhlukile-ke uhlangothi engathi mina-ke uma sengiqala-ke manje ukuthi kube mina-ke ophenyayo ngangena-ke noma ngathatha-ke uhlangothi-ke oluhlukile-ke kulona-ke lolo, ngoba-ke ila khona-ke manje sekune-statement ekhona evelayo sikakhe umsolo wokuqala, futhi-ke seyokhomba futhi balandela ku-HH kanye naye-ke u-JJ okungeza-ke ngendlela ehlukile. Ingakho-ke ngithi uma ngabe singawalandeli-ke lama-approach noma le ndlela ezahlukene-ke ila ekuzoba nendida khona.
Yes, my lord. So I do not have a recollection of us ventilating paragraph 6 as Advocate Mnisi is asking me, my lord.
Angikhumbuli-ke nanjengoba engibuza-ke u-advocate uMnisi ukuthi esekushilo-ke lokhu uMakhumalo okubhaliwe-ke la ukuthi ngase ngimbuza kabanzi-ke ngakho.
Thank you. This is I think it's an elementary approach to every investigating officer, let alone an investigating officer at a commissioned level. There's a witness who says, I was in the house, I saw this incident happening, and the person who was carrying a firearm had dreadlocks that hung up to his neck. Then what an ardent investigating officer would say, Ma'am, are those the only features that you saw of this, now I'm trying to assist. Are these the only features that you saw of this person that you said was wearing a firearm? You say he had short dreadlocks. What else can you remember about him? What about his color? What about the clothes that he was wearing? What about his height? What about his movement? What about his gait? What about his this? What about his that? What about... That is what an ardent investigator would do. Now, from what I'm getting from you, you did not do that. That's all.
No, my lord.
Thank you.
No. When I say no, I'm saying no to the assertion you're making. I'm not agreeing with you, my lord. I'm saying, my lord, and I think I've explained this. It was not a one-on-one discussion. It's not the same, for example, when I interviewed Mr. Madlala with regard to this. There was no prosecution involved. I indicated the difficulty or the situation that was that when Mrs. Khumalo came, she was legally represented. So when we met her with the state advocate, we met her under the supervision of a lawyer. And obviously then discussions then ensued from there, my lord. Now, and I've already indicated as well, my lord, that because of the ID parade that was then done back then, which was an issue, there was a decision taken. I don't want to take the court back on that, my lord. So, but the point of clarity as one of the witnesses who were in the house was important, my lord, and a lot of issues per her statement were ventilated, because I recall questions that were arising as they were taken up by the state advocate and I think myself were in relation to the statements that she made, nothing else, to say this is what you said, what your recollection, etc., etc., etc. So it was in that sense, my lord, but I do know, as I've said, that the position was never taken to say she must be part of an ID parade, my lord.
Lana-ke nanjengoba ngikushilo-ke lokhu ngaphambilini ukuthi-ke kwangasimina-ke owayehleli-ke ekhuluma naye-ke uMakhumalo, nanjengoba kwangafani-ke ngenkathi ngangine-interview kanye naye-ke uTumelo. Ngishilo nokuthi uma eza-ke noma uma ifika uMakhumalo wayehamba nommeli wakhe nomshushisi-ke futhi-ke ekhona-ke lapho, noma esebuzwa-ke imibuzo-ke kubuzwa mayelana ney'tatimende zakhe azenza, futhi-ke ngasho nokuthi-ke uma kuphathelene noma kuya ngendaba lena-ke yayo i-ID parade, lapho-ke akuzange kukhulunywe naye-ke mayelana nakho lokho.
So the essence, my lord, of my response is that it is not the same where as a IO you approach your witness with the hope of getting identification evidence or to establish whether your witness can identify a particular suspect. It is not the same when there's a watching brief, because some of the things as they are communicated, the attorney comes in, because obviously it's there for the purpose, my lord. That's not a similar situation, my lord. So in essence, I'm saying one cannot then be said you should have done 1, 2, 3 as if it was a sole situation where me as the IO, I'm sitting with the witness and then I'm expected to do certain things to get a certain result. That will apply if it's one-on-one or I'm there with my team. But when there's a watching brief and obviously there's a state representative in terms of a state advocate, I think the rules of engagement are different than my lord.
Engikushayo-ke lana ukuthi-ke kuyahluka-ke nokuthi kube yimina-ke noma ngihamba nethimba lami futhi-ke siyoba ne-interview nomuntu-ke loyo noma ngihlezi naye-ke kuphela-ke, kodwa lana-ke wayehamba nommeli wakhe futhi-ke nomshushisi naye ekhona-ke, ungathi-ke ubuza lokhu kube la ummeli angenelela khona-ke. Iyehluka-ke manje indlela-ke osebenzisana ngayo nomuntu uma kuwukuthi-ke kukanjalo.
Yes, my lord, that's my answer.
Thank you, Brigadier. You know, it's very interesting. When you are saying, even the prosecutor was there. Because these are the essential, because the prosecutor knew that at one day, very soon, I'll have to go to court and tell the court that, hey, these are the people who were involved in the commission of the offense. And this is how they are linked with the commission of this offense. One of which is the capability of the people who were in the house to identify them. When you sit there with the prosecutor interviewing, as an investigating officer interviewing a witness, irrespective of whether or not there's an attorney there, an identification of a witness, the description remains a description. Now, we are basically saying, in essence, you never take through this witness. You never ask this witness about the color of that suspect. You never ask this witness about the height of that person who had a firearm in his possession. You never ask this witness, as you interviewed her, in the presence of the prosecutor or conjunctively with the prosecutor, about his movement, his gait, his tone, like as in his voice. Never did those things. How were the braids? Yes, he had dreadlocks, but how were they? Mama, can you explain these dreadlocks? You never did that. Did you actually do investigation here, Brigadier Gininda? I'm sorry, I withdraw that.
We're already on record regarding what we think, and we submit with the greatest of respect that this is irrelevant evidence. What happens during consultation has got absolutely nothing to do with the evidence that is being given in court, and we've already, my lord, placed on record that this whole trajectory of the cross-examination is irrelevant, but we will leave it at that, my lord. I don't know whether it was expected of Brigadier Gininda to keep notes of the consultations and to now answer the questions that is being asked regarding the these issues about the tone of the skin, the height, and the movement. But we leave it at that, my lord. Our objection is on record.
As it pleases the court, my lord. Let me start with the last one. Those are very relevant identifying features, my lord. The voice, the tone of a person, his movement or gait, very relevant identifying feature. But in the main, the state says, was Brigadier, the witness here, expected to keep a note of the discussion that happened between him and the witness? I think the state is shooting himself on the feet. It's this very same witness, my lord, who told this court about his engagement with accused number 2 when the confession, not the confession, when he met him at Carltonville. He said to this court, I introduced myself to him. This is what I explained to him. This is what I did to him. This is what I did to him. This is what I did to him. What was then the difference between what he did with accused number 2 and what he ought to have done with this witness, such a crucial witness who had an identifying capacity to say, these are the people who accosted us that day? I find the objection extremely misplaced, my lord. Extremely misplaced.
As a God, please, my lord. Advocate Mnisi said earlier on that he's familiar with the Mtetwa case. These issues that he's raising, those are the issues that should be left for argument and can be argued at the end of the case. This witness cannot be confronted with those issues, my lord.
My lord, as I am doing here, the state is just not aware that I'm preparing for something. I know that ultimately at the end of it all, I'm going to refer to State versus Mtetwa very deeply. That is what I'm going to do, my lord. But my cross-examination to this witness cannot be circumscribed with an understanding that later on I'm going to refer to Mtetwa. This is an investigating officer, my lord. He's a lead investigator. Remember, the state told this court that Brigadier Gininda is being, basically the state said he's saving the best for last. In other words, Brigadier Gininda will come here and sum up everything. So why should we then say you are saving the best for last for purposes of argument? No, you must probe. We must probe. And we'll keep on probing, my lord. And I see nothing wrong in what I'm doing, my lord. Because I am not cross-examining a policeman who said I was only involved in arresting. This witness says I interviewed the witness who were in the house. But I'm getting somewhere, my lord. May I proceed, my lord?
Yeah, but the way I understand this witness,
Yes, my lord.
he's saying by the time Mrs. Kumalo Senior came with her attorney,
Yes.
you already, according to you, you already knew the identity of the persons involved.
Correct, my lord.
I mean, that's how I understand the evidence.
That's it. That's what I said, my lord.
I'm getting there, my lord.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's how I understand.
Yes.
So asking him about the gate, etc., maybe he thinks it was superfluous because you already know that Ratamo Khotling is the one who shot Senzo.
That's what
getting
I'm saying,
there.
my lord.
I'm getting there, my lord. I think
Mr. Nguman, I see you agree with me. If you knew that Ratamo Khotling shot Senzo, you're still interested in how I walk? I don't know. That's how I understand this evidence. Yeah, but you say you're getting there. Go there.
yes, I'm getting there, my lord. A bit of a patience. Thank you. Now, you have told this court, sir, that in your collaboration process, I'm talking about accused number 3, in your collaboration process, you were satisfied that accused number 3 was involved in this case amongst others. Understand me, amongst others. Because the statement from the witnesses who were in the house are describing the person who had a firearm in his possession as a person who had dreadlocks. Did I get you well there?
No. I don't think that satisfied me or convinced me that he is the one. So when I was referring to him in terms of collaboration, my lord, I was referring to the description of the clothing and insofar as the dreadlocks are concerned. Now, when you get to the firearm, which obviously kicks in after Exhibit HA and JJ comes in, it's a different explanation that I gave, my lord, and it's not how I said it, because when it comes to the firearm, then one has to look at Cleveland case 9602-2015 as to whom was this firearm found in possession of, and then the answer takes us to accused number 3.
Mayelana ke lana noma ke mayelana no nama dreadlocks kanye futhi naloko abayigqokile ke umsolwa ke wesibili owesithathu ke ilokho ke okwakushiwo noma ke ebengikhuluma ngakho, kodwa ke uma ngamanje ke esekukhulunywa ngaso isibhamu ungena ke manje uexhibit HH kanye naye ke uJJ lezo itatimende lezo usuyahamba ke uyobheka ke icala leliya lase Cleveland ubukeke nokuthi ubani owatholakala naso leso sibhamu leso.
Yes, my lord. So in essence, my lord, and I want to repeat this because I've said it, I think 2-3 times. None of the witnesses who were inside the house mentions any of these accused by name, except the description. They will describe that the first intruder was looking like this, the second intruder was looking like this. And that is the same situation with Mrs. Gladys Kumalo. Insofar as the description, that is why I said what was described corroborates what we had. Insofar as the identification that Advocate Mnisi is referring to, I understand him to be referring to an ID parade. This is how I'm understanding him. And that is why I said there are other forms of identifying or linking an accused person. An ID parade is not the only form of linking a person to an offense.
Manje ke ngokumayelana ke nokuthi ke noma ke kofakazi noma kubantu ababengaphakathi ke endlini akekho noyedwa obashoyo ke abasola noma ke ngamagama abo ukuthi kodwa ke bayachaza ke ukuthi waye kanjena wayegqoke kanjena ebukeka kanjena noma kufika kuyena ke uMakhumalo naye ke uchaza kanjalo ukusho ukuthi ke wayegqokeni noma kwakukanjani ingakho ke uma ngikhuluma ke ngaloku kuhlanganisa ke lokho noma lokufakazi lokhu okuhlanganisayo noma okuthola ngala bese uyakuthola nangokulula uhlangothi.
So, in closure, my lord, I'm saying, not in closure, but lastly, my lord, I'm saying what convinced me with regard to a firearm was not because of the people who were inside the house, except the corroboration that the first intruder had a firearm. The factual evidence that I was able to collect and rely on, Cleveland case 96 of 2015, which then indicates the firearm was found in possession of accused 3. It's alleged on that docket, my lord. Furthermore, the ballistic outcome, this is now after the request was made that the projectile found on this matter, the matter before court, should be then tested with the firearm seized under Cleveland case 96 of 2015. The report which then came and said the projectile, the firearm under Cleveland 96 is the one that discharged the bullet that was found on this matter. So that was compelling, my lord. But furthermore, my lord, it was witnesses other than Exhibit HH and JJ, which says which alleges that accused 3 was the one who was carrying the firearm and who discharged the firearm. This is what SJ and JJ says. But further than that, there were statements around. This is what I'm talking about, not the people inside the house, people outside the house, witnesses that I was able to get into that implicates accused number 2 as accused 3 in this matter, my lord.
Manje ke uma sesiya kusona ke noma sikhuluma ngaso ke isibhamu lesi ke ila khona ke manje kuvela ke isibhamu lesi biqala leli lase Cleveland manje ke kutholakala futhi nenhlamvu lena ke yakuleli ke icala ila isinqumo esesathathwa khona ke ukuthi ke akubese kuyo hlolwa ke isibhamu leso ukuthi kusetshenziswe leyo nhlamvu kwatholakala ukuthi impela ke isibhamu leso isona esadubula leyo nhlamvu eyatholakala kuleli icala eliphambi kwenkantolo kanye imiphumela ke leyo ye-ballistic bese kuba khona ke u-HH kanye naye ke u-JJ nezinye ke itatimende zabanye abantu ke engasibona babesendlini kodwa abanye ababengaphandle.
Yes, my lord, that's my answer.
Thank you, Brigadier. People outside the house also implicated accused number 3. I realize that it is almost 29 minutes to 4 o'clock, my lord. Normally, I should be requesting, as I hereby do, for an adjournment up until tomorrow, my lord. Let us adjourn for the day. Thank you, my lord.
Excuse me, my lord, perhaps before we adjourn, when I said people outside the house, I'm not referring to witnesses, neighbors. I'm referring to people that I approached who were not inside the house, who were then witnesses who implicated this accused. So I don't want it tomorrow when we come, we fight about that. I'm not referring to the neighbors who then implicates this accused specifically, except the description. I'm referring to witnesses that we found who were not inside the house, no way the neighbors, who then implicates accused 3 specifically, not by assumption, specifically him, implicates him in this matter.
Mangikhuluma ke ngabantu abangaphandle ke ngikhulume ke ngabomakhelwane kodwa ngikhuluma ke ngabanye abantu engaya kubona ngakhulumisana nabo ke futhi ke bekhuluma ngaye ke uqobo umsolwa ke wesithathu besho ukuthi ke wambandakanyeka ke sona ke isigameko lesi.
And we made statements in future.
Yes, I think one of them, when I tried to deal with it, my lord, it didn't sit well with Advocate Mnisi because we came into the names when I was still led by the advocate. You know, there were aggressive objections when I wanted to go there. But yes, statements were made, my lord.
Yebo ikhona itatimende ezenziwa ke ibona ke labo bantu labo ngizamile ukuthi ngene lapho kodwa ke kwaba khona ke nje ukuyisana khona kodwa yebo bazenza itatimende.
Okay. You're not sitting tomorrow?
No, I'm now done, my lord.
Writing?
I'm done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for this time, so I'm available all day.
It's a free bed, my lord, from the books.
Sorry, my lord. I'll just ask to be excused for tomorrow, but I'll arrange for someone to come and stand in, my lord.
Oh, you're not available tomorrow?
We are busy with some short listings tomorrow, my lord.
So who's going to be standing?
I will make sure that I'll get someone.
Okay, fine. See you tomorrow. 10 o'clock.
All right.